Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome, or good morning, depending on where you're at. Good time of day. Welcome to Banner and Backbone. I'm Nick Parrow. This is the Anti-Fascist Book Club, and I'm joined by my friends Tara Devlin of Tara Buster and the Political Voices Network. Hey, what's up, Tara?
Hey, hello, hello. Nice to see you guys.
Good to see you. And my shirt twin today, Chris
Nice. I
Goldsmith,
love it.
has all of us fighting fascism.
I like it. Good
Chris
idea.
Chris, the founder of On Offense, one of the leads and incredible creators at Valor Media Network, creator of Veterans Fighting Fascism, Task Force Butler. List goes on and on and on with Chris of incredible things that he's done.
I
I've
gotta
now met
stop.
his
I
best
gotta fucking
friend.
stop.
I've now met his best friend too, so he's
Oh,
screwed. Now I've got the inside scoop from his friend, and all in the good ways. So what's up, Chris? How are you today, man?
How's it going, man?
Good, good. So welcome, y'all. It's Friday, which means we're back for the Anti-Fascist Book Club, where we are continuing our series, or book 4, episode 3, I believe this is, of To Catch a Fascist by Christopher Matthias. And before we get into our book, as always, Chris, do you want to remind everyone what the book club is and isn't? And for those who are new with us, this side of my head, there's a QR code up there for the Veterans Fighting Fascism Anti-Fascist Book Club guidebook, so you can start your own.
So the Anti-Fascist Book Club started actually because of a super viral TikTok. It was a total fucking accident. After the election, people were reaching out to me asking, like, what do we do? What do we do? And the first thing is you have to educate yourself about fascism if a fascist is going to be the president of the United States. So I came up with a brief list of what I thought was the essential reading so that people can understand the history of fascism is the history of democracy winning.
Mm.
However, it might be 2 years, it might be 50 years. Depends on how your opposition organizes. So the Anti-Fascist Book Club is the big project of Veterans Fighting Fascism. It's not just a list of books to help you educate yourself. It's an excuse to go out and get involved with organizing with other people. That can be virtually, as we do here every Friday, or more importantly, it should be locally and in person, if at all possible. If you want to combat fascism, you can't be hyper focused on what's happening in Washington, what Donald Trump is tweeting about. You have to know what's going on with your local fascists, the fascists in your own backyard. So if you're interested in actually combating fascism, everything that you need, all of the guides are at veteransfightingfascism.org. It's the book list. It'll get you through your first 6 meetings. I've got a guide for each one of those, like questions and answer period, whatever, just to get the conversation flowing. Unlike most nonprofits, I don't want to build a relationship with you. I don't want you on my email list. I mean, if you want to donate, that's great. But the goal is to make it so that every anti-fascist is self-sufficient and can organize locally without needing Veterans Fighting Fascism or Chris Goldsmith. We're here to get you started on your own activism that you should be engaged in locally, because fascism grows in your own backyard, and that's where you have the greatest opportunity to fight it.
Yeah.
Agreed. Tara, before we get into our book, anything you want to add?
No, just I was just listening to Chris and thinking just what a great person he is. That's all because you're in the game and you don't just sit back. I really admire that. You make the change, and I love that. I love that. You're leading others to join. So yeah, this is how we're going to win. I think I just think you're a great person. So thank you.
Thank you so
Thank you
much.
for all you do. Yeah.
I want to point out that you made an important word choice there, Tara, whether it was purposeful or accidental, but recruiting others, I
Mm,
think, is a really important word
mhm.
choice. And I was talking with Pete Dominic yesterday, longtime comedian, male advocate, girl dad, pro democracy friend. Like he was on two of my shows yesterday, just back to back, on accident for the second one. But in the first one, he said something along those lines of like he purposely recruits people into his life. And
Hmm.
right now, we're combating a group that is, or we're going on offense against a group that is purposely recruiting hate, purposely
Right.
recruiting the most
Yeah.
evil elements of our society, actively using that to foment fear and aggression and anger. We need to be purposefully recruiting people to our side too.
Right.
I
With
think
hope
that's an
too. That's the
yes.
thing. Yeah.
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 Yeah, and with a different mindset, not with
Hmm.
the "I'm here because I wanna hurt
Yeah.
people,"
Or
but "I'm here
exclude
because the
people and
benefit of what
hmm
I'm doing is for the greater good,
that's right.
and that others can be involved with it," and I think that's a powerful difference that Chris, you mentioned organizing, and I'd love your thoughts on, like, what do you see happening right now on a national versus local level for organizing when it comes to, say, the Democratic Party compared to grassroots movements that you are either familiar with or know about that are actively encouraging citizens to be involved compared to say what the Democrats or the parties are doing.
Yeah. So let me back up for 1 second, just talk about the recruiting thing. So first of all, despite what it might look like, Nick and I do not coordinate our t-shirts.
Or your
We
beards. So
we just, I mean, the beards, those are
Well,
more
the
important.
beards are just perfect anyway, so it's
uh-huh.
hard not to
But
coordinate them.
but every Friday we have matching t-shirts. This is I just bought my own style, whatever. I just bought this. This is the first time I'm wearing it on screen. And I come on
Mm.
and Nick is wearing that. Nick got that shirt because we were together a week ago today. We were in Minneapolis. The Dropkick Murphys responded to our crazy idea 3 weeks prior. We were just like, hey, Dropkick Murphys are going to be in St. Paul. They've got a sold out show. Why don't we ask them if they can do like a pop up show at the Alex Preddy Memorial
Oh,
for the people of Minnesota, help fundraise, just bring some joy to a city that has been,
that's my cat.
experiencing its own, its own kind of like war, really. I mean, that's what the streets of Minneapolis have been like. So over the course of 3 weeks, we planned a pop up show that originally, like, the idea we pitched to Dropkick was,
Oh
hey, we'll
God.
get you on the back of an 18-wheeler and like you just pull up to the site, do an acoustic show for whoever's there, because there's always people at the Alex Preddy Memorial, and then take off because you guys have got your show that night and you need to perform. That turned into, well, you have to have a permit for that. So, well, if we need a permit anyway, why don't we just stay there and like get a couple of local bands? And then it ended up being an entire fucking day long, kind of like a musical festival, I guess.
Yeah, a
Like
little bit.
technically a
It
music.
felt like a day of a music festival. Yeah, I've been
Yeah.
to plenty of those, so it had that vibe. People were in and out. Like I was up right next to the stage. It was fucking awesome.
Yeah, no barriers, just open to the street. Like people could just come and go as they pleased. It was really fucking awesome. So, um, talking about what communities is a very long way to answer your question about like what local communities are doing. Minneapolis is a place where I think every American who has the means to do it should make plans to take a vacation to go there for a weekend or for a week if you can. Just visit Minneapolis. They need the business. They need the attention. They need people to understand that ICE is still present. There, yes, has been a little bit of a drawdown, but now they're going into the suburbs. They're going into rural communities where there's less resistance. And one, aside from like trying to bring back the economy in Minneapolis that has had tremendous damage because of all of the ICE raids and the ICE occupation, we all collectively need to learn the lessons that they have learned on the front lines of fighting a fascist regime, because ICE is a fraction of the size that it will be in 2 years. Like, it takes time to staff up, though training is abbreviated. Like, it does take time for the organization to grow. As the organization grows, it will be deployed, as it was in Minneapolis, to many other places in the United States. So talking about like making self-sufficient anti-fascist activists, one of the ways that you can learn how to fight fascism is go and meet some Minnesotans who've been doing it in the most literal sense, physical sense for months now, and just go to the Alex Preddy Memorial.
Wow.
We were hosted by the Black Forest Inn right across the street. Glam Girls Donuts, which I think is
good girl,
is where
good donuts too. Amazing.
I think that window was where someone, like the first video of.
I think it was. That was the
Alex
cross
Preddy's
street view. Yeah.
Yeah. So go there, visit those businesses, talk to the people who are just hanging out there. Nick and I were there for days, and there was not a minute where there were not people manning the memorial, keeping candles lit in the rain all day. Like, it was truly incredibly inspiring. And if you want to know what anti-fascism looks like when like the fucking stormtroopers come to your city, that is what it looks like. Go talk to those people, learn some lessons, and bring them back home.
Yeah. And I want, adding on to what you were talking about, like, while I was there, I got to talk to folks. I got to really be really up close to the people, especially the band Brass Solidarity. So at the end of the evening, a brass band, large band sort of group called Brass Solidarity, super soulful, super just energizing community group, came out and they closed the show. And then they stayed for an extra hour after the event ended just to give their friends and neighbors a party, like something to dance for and enjoy. And I stayed for that whole show, and you guys got all that recording because I was fortunate enough to be able to go. Like, I was fortunate enough because of the sponsorship of Veterans Fighting Fascism and Chris, and to get to meet all of the folks at Valor Media that were there, the Save America movement team that was there, the other veteran creators, but getting to interact with the community, you could see like there is a sense of hope there. Mm-hmm. There's a solidarity amongst the people. You can feel it. Mm-hmm. You can like tangibly feel how much more together they are now than they were before the year started. And I've never been to Minneapolis before, but you can tangibly feel how together they are. At the same time, there's a simmering hate, right, and anger right below the surface. And they're not using it to fuel violence. They're using it to fuel community. They're using it to fuel memorials, to fuel mutual aid for each other, rent funds, support systems. That's what they're doing. That's what we should be, one of the main lessons we should be able to learn off of from them is that community. But also when you're inside it, like Brass Solidarity, that's part of it too. The music, the creativity, the getting to be a part of that connection and feel and community experience. And they had us singing with them at the end. They had people participating. There were walks of life from every walk of life there. We had some incredible veteran community members speak. I don't remember his name, but the speaker before the Murphys came on, the community kitchen owner, Chris, do you remember his name? The veteran who spoke for a little while.
I was inside doing interviews during that, so I didn't get to see.
Oh, okay. It was one of the videos I posted. It was the guy in the blue jacket. I don't remember his name, but he's a community member. He has his kitchen open. Like he owns a restaurant in the community, and he has it open to those around. And he's looking to, at this point, it sounded like run for an office. And I got to talk to him afterwards and just hang out with him for a little bit. And I was like, dude, whatever it is that real politicians have where they can spark joy and togetherness, you've got it. Like whatever office you run for, you better be fucking running, dude. Like
I think
we've
I
got you.
saw your video of that
Yeah,
guy.
you
Is
saw it
the
on
big
TikTok.
tall dude?
Yeah,
Yeah.
the black gentleman with the tight curled hair and pulled in the ponytail.
Yep. I met him. He, I guess, had just spoken or something. He came
Yeah.
off stage, and he was super fucking friendly guy. Like,
Dude, so much like he had that like Mom Donnie charisma or the Obama charisma or just that good politician charisma, but not in a pandering, like I'm going to
Yep.
talk down to you like you're an idiot way, or the I'm going to fuel you with rage way. But it was the I'm going to bring you together and we're going to do this together way. And there's so many amazing people in Minneapolis and what they're doing to bring each other together, to uplift each other is what we all need to be doing, not what we should be doing, but what we must be doing. Like there are no more shoulds. We need to be connecting and caring with each other and building these secondary support systems. Or as Dr. G. Patterson says, Doc G says, you can find them on Substack here, Doc G, is the daisy chain. Like the daisy chain of building solidarity communities and movements together, because we are fighting back against groups that are organizing in those same fashions, just on the other end of the ideological spectrum. They're building their own parallel system to place over the Constitution. We are building one to reinforce and reclaim the Constitution. And I think there's a big difference, at least for me, there. But we should probably tie this all back into the book that we're reading, because we are reading a book. Though we could have an incredible conversation, I think, just on what happened in Minneapolis and like what Chris and I experienced. So I'm probably going to just invite Chris on to have a conversation about that, sort of like a debrief of like what happened, what'd you experience, how did it go, what did we all learn. You're going to be seeing a lot of the veteran creators that I met coming onto my shows here soon. I've invited pretty much all of them at this point. And who I haven't yet, I'm going to extend invites to come on actually the Intelligent Masculinity series on Sick of This Shit Publications, men and women, because there's unique perspectives that we need from moms, from women who've experienced men in the world, and men. And so, but that all sort of wraps into to catch fascist, because we're fighting back against movements that are really well organized. And Chris is our resident Nazi hunter, or was, still is probably. And you
semi-retired.
turned us
In
on
a different way.
yeah. And I want to get your thoughts on, as we're continuing, we're still roughly in the middle of the book right now, early mid book, wherever you really find some powerful points that you've pulled out. But one of the things you said, Chris, before we even got started on this book was, this is the book I wish I had or had been able to write or put my thoughts down to say years ago. And I'd love your like full-throated expression of why, as we read through this.
Yeah, it's I mean, as you alluded to, I've been infiltrating these extremist organizations, performing research, basically gathering evidence of criminality, like is documented throughout this book, writing reports, sending them off to both law enforcement, to policymakers, and to victims, so that the members of Patriot Front, that was kind of my most frequent target, could be held accountable. It was incredibly tough work, but also really fulfilling. Task Force Butler Institute's what it was created for. We were wildly effective for an unfunded organization made entirely of volunteers. We were crazy effective. We are responsible for the research that imposed about $3 million in lawsuits, successful lawsuits against Patriot Front. we managed to get a bunch of them prosecuted. And the thing about this book that I wanted for folks to understand that I could never communicate in the in-depth way that this book has is how widespread this problem is. In 2017, when Unite the Right rally happened, I feel like a lot of us have kind of like repositioned the way that we think about Unite the Right. A lot of us, myself included, didn't pay that close attention to what actually happened on the ground. We had kind of like the headlines, the surface level, and then what got the most attention from the political world and from, I think, most well-read Americans, people who do pay attention to the news, was Donald Trump saying neo-Nazis are very fine people. That's what drove most of the headlines. That's what drove most of the discussions. I didn't realize until I was infiltrating Patriot Front with a friend in 2020, so a full 3+ years later, how literal that Nazi label was. That I didn't, when my friend first proposed that we infiltrate a Nazi organization together, I thought he was using the term Nazi hyperbolically. It wasn't until I was inside that I saw them discussing and debating National Socialist philosophers and writers and authors and books. I didn't understand until I saw them using the words propaganda and self-radicalization unironically that they were seeking this out, not accidentally. They weren't radicalized by the manosphere as so many people talk about, and that is a tremendous problem. These people were far worse than what most people think of as extremists and as like misogynists and part of the manosphere. Like, these people, their goal was genocide. Their goal is genocide. This organization still exists basically in the same strength, form, and function that it did when the infiltrator who this book is written about was doing his work. So we still have a lot of work left to do. And I hope that when people read this book, they understand the severity of the threat and more people get involved in fighting fascism in their own backyard, in the most literal sense of the word, finding these punks, imposing legal, social, and economic costs on them, and making them feel the pain. Because we can't just be nice. We can't just hold hands and do the kumbaya shit. We have to hurt these people in every legal way possible. We have to impose serious costs, serious disincentives in order to get them to stop doing this shit. And this is not a belief system. This is a way of life. It is not a belief that Jewish people or people of color, need to go away. This is the hate that fuels people like Stephen Miller, which turns into federal policy, which turns into billions and billions of dollars of our taxpayer dollars being spent to hurt millions and millions of good people.
Yep.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, we're building concentration camps in the US and DHS is buying up warehouses and converting them. And like you said, that takes time. And training and property purchasing and building out a network of cameras within the nation and getting the permits to make sure that they can build those initially, and then having all the data acquisition systems and the profiling and predictive policing systems that they're putting online, like Project Gotham and Maven and all of the Palantir related programs that are intertwining with DHS and Flock Safety. Yes, it takes time. It takes time for this movement to coalesce into its like hyper oppression state, because we're not at the coalesce into they're getting their shit together. We're We are coalescing to get our shit together. They are coalescing to implement the final stages of their 40-year plan. Because this plan, has someone said it in the chat, this goes back to McVeigh. Well, I would actually say this goes back even further than McVeigh. This goes back to the Civil War. This is American tradition of white supremacy. This is not an old, it even goes back further. It goes back to the Mormons conquering the entire West and genociding the groups of natives across the country, or back to the Trail of Tears and us genociding the entire native populations on this country. We need to stop limiting ourselves to the idea that this is a modern movement in America. This is a 250-year-old American movement that needs to be quashed. And so we are fighting against the ends. They are together. We are still pretty disorganized right now, to be frank. Like, there's no national unity among Democrats. There's no national unity among another alternative party that could replace the Democrats or replace both the Republicans and the Democrats in a positive way. And we need to get on that. Like, we need to actually be on that.
Can I
Tara?
say something?
Yeah.
No, I'm
right
just.
in.
I'm sorry. Everything that you guys are talking about. So, in the book, there's a chapter called "The Brief History" or "A Brief History of Punching Nazis," and what you were mentioning about the Unite the Right rally and Trump with the both sides and all this movement, this fascist movement, has been allowed to grow in the soil of liberal tolerance, frankly. And there's that myth of tolerance that we should really, I think, talk about. That we are a shining whatever beacon of, supposedly, right, of free speech, where everyone gets a seat at the table. But if that's the paradox. Actually, that's the word, the paradox of tolerance, not the myth of the tolerance, the paradox, that if we allow these Nazis, these horrible people who, want to commit genocide, we allow them to grow and organize and march and recruit under our liberal tolerance, then we're really setting the flame on on a fire that's going to burn us all down. And as we see with these people who are now in the halls of power, we really do have our work cut out for us now, because they get, and we've seen this, we saw this happen with when the Unite the Right rally had, when Trump talked about very fine people on both sides, and you had the punditry, the media, the corporate media pundits, the billionaire run millionaires telling working people to just point their fingers at everyone other than the ones at the top. But the debate was about what Trump said, and it should be about that we don't tolerate Nazis in this country. If we do, we're going to destroy ourselves. And I think that's where we are at this point. The normalization of this as just another political viewpoint. It's okay, it may be a political viewpoint, but it's a sickness. It's a sickness, and especially in a multiracial liberal democracy. And if we want to survive, that's the uncomfortable truth, that a society that tolerates people who want to strip others of their rights isn't tolerant. It's cowardly to let it continue. Really, we have to confront it head on, I think. So, yeah. What do you think? I mean, we can't hide behind the process of when real human beings are at stake here, and the entire system that is supposed to exist to let us all, pursue happiness. But you can't pursue happiness when the happiness of these very sick people depends on your subjugation or a complete annihilation. I mean, this is where we're at this point, and that's what they're trying to do. They're doing it with trans people now. They're targeting trans people, and the conversation should be the relating what they're doing to trans people to what the Nazis did to trans people, because they were the first targets in the early 30s. That should, and a lot of Americans don't know that, sadly. So, and that's a disgrace on the corporate media, frankly. The people who have bigger platforms than we do, we are doing as much as we can. But I wish there would be a day where the corporate media pundits were on here saying, please become a patron, and we were the ones that had the millions of eyeballs, right?
That'll
So
be soon enough. Because,
exactly.
well, I think part of it too is breaking through those mythologies and getting like the anti-fascist research into the public sphere and breaking
Hmm.
through the misnomers and the purposeful biases against militant anti-fascism and what it
Mm.
means to truly be anti-fascist. Because just like during pre-World War II and during World War II times, when the media was bought up by rich assholes,
Hmm.
and say newspapers in America at the time were promoting Nazism. They weren't against it.
Yep.
We had the German American Bund in the US. Like,
Yep. Yep. Yep.
we had a partnership unofficially because citizens decided they wanted to do that. And there was the Madison Square Garden rally. There
Yep.
were other types of Unite the Right rallies that didn't always, they did get the significance now that they do, or after they happened, there was significance to them. But now we're living through those types of events again. And we have to we are the ones taking over the space to push back on that shit and say, no, like, I'm not going to tolerate Charlie Kirk memorial
Oh
sites
God.
across the country, or when I see a
Right.
church in Oklahoma that I drive by with the Christian flag flying over the American flag. Maybe next time I drive by, I will stop
That's
and find the
disgusting.
address and call the cops, because that's an illegal act.
Mm-mm.
That you don't put the flag of another group over the American flag in the States ever.
No.
Or the
No.
laws of, yeah, Courtney, thanks for that one. I was going to bring that up too, is the law in Kansas now revoking trans people of their driver's
Are
license
you kidding me? Oh
and
my God.
removing
You
that
see?
federal identification that would be needed
Right. Right.
to
Right. Right. Right.
vote.
Right.
And
Right.
this is the precursor to voting restrictions, and is a voting restriction. It is a Jim Crow era law to restrict people from the access to vote. These assholes are fucking organized. They've been doing this forever. And Chris, you mentioned how pervasive it is. Now that we're at a point where it's becoming less socially unacceptable
Right.
to
That's it.
be a Nazi, which is a
Yep.
fucking problem. It's a problem. I have to say that
A
sentence.
big one.
How do we continue to impose the types of costs necessary to stop further recruitment on their side and promote recruitment for pro-democracy initiatives or pro-human initiatives on our side?
So that was a perfect segue. I swear we don't plan any of this.
I'm here for you, dude.
So page 87, the first page of chapter 7, A Brief History of Unmasking, begins with: the history of white supremacy in America is marked in part by periods when the most ardent practitioners wore masks and periods when they didn't need to. When I interviewed Chris Mathias, I brought this up during the interview and asked him, are we entering a period where the masks no longer matter? And his answer was kind of like, yeah, maybe. And it was in the context of ICE. So many of us have been advocating for ICE to abide by the norms and laws. of law enforcement in this country, which is we do not have a secret police force. We do not have a police force that goes around with masks without any identification, no badge numbers, no name tapes, or anything like that. And I am wondering if we are reaching a point where if Congress passed a law and they actually enforced it and ICE no longer wore masks, does the United States do we, the people, have the capacity to impose costs to disincentivize fascist behavior by this growing police force? They have the largest, they have one of the largest budgets as far as military forces in the world go. They have a budget that is now larger than the United States Marine Corps, which, by the way, has ships and has aircraft. Like it's not just human beings. They have very, very, very expensive equipment and bases all around the world, right? I think that we could be entering an era when, if ICE is unmasked, those ICE agents might still feel invulnerable, not just to the law, but to social consequences. And they certainly feel immune to federal law. The Vice President of the United States has said it explicitly that they have absolute immunity, which, while that is not the law, the fact is that Donald Trump holds the power to pardon anybody for anything, for any federal crime. So unless we convince state governments, attorneys general, districts attorneys, to start filing charges against individual ICE agents for violations of local and state law, which they are within their jurisdiction, unless we convince these local and state politicians to be aggressive, we will be in a place where Donald Trump could just say, "I'm giving you a preemptive pardon." Remember around January 6th, the phrase preemptive pardon or pocket pardon was discussed all the time. I mean, I think what I remember from those conversations from legal scholars, it seems like a hole in the Constitution. Donald Trump could preemptively pardon ICE for anything. So it's going to be up to state and local governments to rein them in. So if we are successful in getting them unmasked through advocacy, through the law, will it even matter if state and local governments aren't stepping up?
That's
and
what's
Donald
so
Trump has
frustrating.
issued a blanket or preemptive pardon?
Well, this is the frustration of living in this timeline of watching these people get away with their crimes again and again and again. And it feels very, we all feel, I don't know about you, I'll speak for myself, but it feels enraging to me. But it also serves to make people tune out. You know, I know a lot of people that were very politically engaged that are like, I can't deal with this shit. I'm not, because they feel powerless to do anything about it. There's no, I mean, there is blatant open crimes happening. We all watched Alex Preddy and Renee Good get murdered before our eyes by these lawless scumbags. And what happened? Where's Jonathan Ross now? Is he's still on duty? I know he got a big payday on GoFundMe from the fascists, right? Or wherever they have their own fascist channel where they fundraise, right?
Give, set, and go.
Yeah. But that in itself is disgusting. There's no accountability. Oh, he's the victim. And that's part of fascism in itself, where they are the perpetual victims. So no matter what happens, everyone's picking on them. That's why there's so many losers and how, I'm sure you met them when you were infiltrating fascist groups where these are losers, that they get these are hurt young men who feel, I guess, lost in their lives. And they, instead of offering hope to these people, they give them excuses. They give them they're the victims of elites or conspiracies or the other or some, an illegal or this, they would otherwise be living their best lives. It's everybody else's fault. So this is what we're seeing now too, that everything is we're all picking on the powers that be, right? It's all, if you ask them questions, especially Trump, right? If you ask him a question, oh, it's, you're terrible, you're horrible, anyway, but I think that I don't even know where I'm going with that sentence there, but you know what I'm saying. It's just losers, a lot of losers, lost losers in this movement. And one of the things when I was reading the book too was, what struck me was how infantile these men were in these groups, very babyish, very just doing like babyish, juvenile antics. But I also had to remind myself, what do you call it? I dismissed them at my own peril, and we dismissed them at our peril. Just, this was the same thing with the Nazis. They dismissed Hitler as a joke, as a clown. We can look at contemporaneous writings where that people were like, "Oh, he's a fool, he's a clown." I mean, and we do know there was a Jewish group that was an early, a large organized group of Jewish people, of Jewish Germans who were early adopters of Hitler, and we all know how that ended up. So anyway,
yeah, and I mean, reading one of the YouTube comments that we've got is, it's edgelord shit, therefore Tran cry hards, and yes, I'd argue maybe 8chan cry hards, but like nowadays just Twitter or excreter cry hards, because that's what you do on X, is you excrete shit.
Yep.
And so that's what they do on X, is they just excrete shit all over us and tell us how dumb they are and bad their ideas are. But when you don't push back in that space, like when it was in the chapter, like talking about, I'm going to be famous, look, I'm going to be famous. Like, we need to have folks on our side who are willing to be just as open to being famous and maybe having their life ruined, but for a good reason. Because we have to impose costs. And I'm not saying, when I say some people, I am not saying minority communities or minority or like marginalized people need to be the ones going out and imposing that type of cost. I mean, white folks, you need to be going back into the spaces that we claim to care about and taking them over again. If you're a white person who loves punk rock and heavy metal and hard rock shows, go back to them and make them spaces that are akin to what the early skinheads from London used to do, which was a anti-Nazi movement, anti-fascist movement, which was co-opted by the fascists to allow themselves to get into our spaces. It's okay to reclaim those types of movements and push them out of the space, because if we don't push them out of the cultural spaces, they further embed themselves until it becomes the identity of the space. Like, we have to impose the cost of, go to a punk rock show and you're going to get pushed out of the fucking concert. You're not going to be welcome there. Whatever that looks like to remove you, that's not my doing. I'm just saying there needs to be a true social cost that we organized impose. If it's masks off isn't a problem for them, then they at least need to be removed from the spaces they find fun and make sure they're known to not be welcome, because we can still claim those spaces.
Yeah.
And we can still take them back.
Well, and for the part-time Nazis, the ones who are members of clubs and not, working for the federal government under promise of absolute immunity, there's guys like Tyler Washington, who was revealed as James Julius Johnson. This is page 103 in the chapter Patriot Fail. He was an HVAC technician, making $80,000 a year, but he was also a member of a union.
Oh,
So
interesting.
a lot of these guys are very frequently benefiting
Of
from
course. Yep.
from liberal or progressive aligned privileges. Being a member of a union is a privilege, and this guy was betraying his sisters and brothers in his union by being a part-time Nazi. So
Disgusting, right? I mean, how do they do that though? How do they think that if God forbid fascism completely takes over the country, that their union's not going to be dissolved, just like what happened in Nazi Germany? These the Republicans all the time. I'll get messages from right wingers, and they'll say, "Oh, liberals are they're fascists or whatever," and clearly you don't have a grasp of history, much less reality. But the Hitler was, you could go into Hitler's speeches and pull out very pro-union, pro-labor statements, and then they would point to that. Oh, look, he thought this, he thought that. And that's just exactly what Trump does and says. That's why when people are upset or they're saying, oh, he betrayed us, and because he didn't run on this, you gotta really kind of take a look in the mirror, because he's a con man. He'll say whatever he thinks is you want to hear, and this is the nature of the authoritarian, who will just wants power. So
yeah, and I pulled this comment up from the YouTube feed and chat. I wish I could pull up our comments from Substack chat too. So Restream, come on, fix that. Like that would be nice. I know Substack probably doesn't want to do that, but it would be sweet if y'all could. But this one's important. I think this ties into what a really, really, really tightly into some things that I've talked about before on other shows too, is if you're in a company and in a place of privilege within your company that can affect policy change and policy direction and company direction, fucking use it. Threaten to take your stock out. Threaten to buy all your stock. Threaten to or sell all your stock out. Threaten to take your 401ks out. Threaten to use your position and privilege within the company to affect positive change, because if you don't, some asshole's going to do it. And they're going to do it in a bad way. So you need to speak out and stand, and your company needs to be willing to put themselves on the line. And if your company's not, you're not at the right company. Sorry. Like if you're not in a company where they're going to stand in these moments now before it's too late, before there's actual like physical violence for companies yet, in many ways, like you need to stand up and make sure it's known now. And if you're in a union, you can easily say, hey, if you're outed as a union member, as a Nazi who is anti-union in everything that they are about, because unions are about supporting all of us collectively together.
Yeah, we're in this together.
Then collectively as the union, we vote you out and remove you from the union membership and roles. And you don't get your dues back. You're just kicked the fuck out. We'll keep your money. Thanks. Bye. Like unions can do that shit. And if your union leaders,
I wonder though if they can though, because there's been so many anti-union laws passed by Republicans. Like,
well, then they have to try.
Well,
they have to
yeah,
try.
No, I agree. They should go to court and all that and take it to court. But for example, you as I'm not sure what the case is, or what it is now, what the law specifically is. But that Republicans have been like dismantling unions, especially when Trader Trump got back into office. One of the first things he did was stop he signed an executive order against collective bargaining for federal workers, and so there. And one of the things that they did was they made it so if you are a member of a union, if you're working in a union shop, you don't have to pay dues, and the union still has to represent you. So That's who they are. They do whatever they can to destroy the liberal democracy and destroy, because capitalism, this, I mean, because fascism is the breeding ground is end stage capitalism. So they want the working class on the balls of their ass. So then you look to these authoritarian leaders, so called, to save you from the scary world. And it's like, just like the historical fascists, they use the and you're the person in the book who's a union member. It doesn't surprise me. This is what we see. There was a guy back in the day, his name was Vanderbo, and he was one of the people that was just stirring up shit when that got Gabby Giffords almost assassinated about Obamacare. And he was hiding in his basement. He built a big network of people, and he was like, break their windows, break them, and that was against the Democrats who were passing Obamacare. Then it was revealed that he was capable, or he was able to sit in his basement on the internet machine that was created by government research and development, so our tax dollars, only because of the Social Security disability payments that he had from We the People. And it came out that he was on Social Security disability. And then he was like, oh, me, I fell on hard times. And you know what I mean? And like, where's your bootstraps, buddy? But this is what I'm talking about. They want all the benefits of civilization that liberals create, but they don't want to have any of the responsibilities. So like the historical fascists, like the Nazis, they use elections, they use free speech, assembly, freedom of assembly to build their mass movement. And then they use emergency powers, like what Trader Trump is doing now, and decree laws to shut all this down, to shut down the opposition, the independent media, and civil liberties. This is what we're seeing. Even Hexat this morning was on CNN whining about, oh, I can't wait for David Ellison to take over. Right?
Oh, I can't. Yeah.
Hopefully
we'll have him back here too in a second, as we have a new friend joining us.
What just
Stephen
happened there? I thought I sent him off or something.
One of Chris's best friends, if not best friend. And I got to interview him. He's an Army vet. Good dude. And he's going to be joining us for the book clubs moving forward, and
cool.
At least tuning in with us, if not every episode, whenever he's available. And I'm super excited to have him when he comes back on, if he's able to make it. If not today, we'll get him for next week. But like I read that quote, or I listened to that quote from Pete Hegseth about I can't wait for the Ellisons to finish taking over media, is the most Seven Mountain Mandate dominionism bullshit that I've ever heard.
Chilled and try to stop this. Yeah.
Because the Secretary of Wannabes is getting our service members killed, and is upset that they're taking unflattering pictures of him.
Right.
And
it's about the performance, when you
and,
have no substance.
And wants us to really believe that 1984 Orwellian slogan of war is peace and freedom is slavery.
Right. Yeah, we've already won. Right. Yeah.
Yeah, we've already won. It doesn't
it's
even
a little bit of both. It's both.
Like, it doesn't even remind me of George Bush coming out and saying, we've won, or the war is over. This is just like, meh, we won, we're done.
Yeah,
but by the way, 6 service members died yesterday,
and there'll be more.
No, nobody's mourning it. Like, they're fucking pawns on a board.
It's disgusting. Yep, it's fucking disgusting.
So one of the questions I have towards the end here for all of us as we continue forward in our book, and we'll be back next week again for more on To Catch Fascist, is it's another idea or reference from 1984, but also from what we've read previously in some of our other books around on tyranny and stuff, is the idea of moving the best into a war outside the country, so that the only thing that's left are the nationalists and those that hate the most, who are willing to do and inflict the most damage within the nation. What are your guys' thoughts on that? happening, because my fears, what I fear, and this is just my fear, but I've heard it from others in the community, is that we're going to get attacked as the US.
Oh God, yeah.
We don't have a good counter in terrorist organization anymore in the FBI. It's been gutted. We have some fucking jackass, dumb, non-intelligence professional who's leading one of the most important counterintelligence units in the country, if not the world, protecting the US. And we've got Kash Patel. And
yeah, you talk about that
we're gonna bring-
22-year-old guy who was
that asshole,
the lawn
delivery
lawn,
driver or
yeah.
whatever.
I think he did like lawn care before. That was his job.
Whatever he used to do. He is not an
Fucking
intelligence
unreal.
professional. I'm more qualified than he is, and I've only gone through AIT and some interrogation training afterwards. Like, what do you guys think of like that being the true threat compared to, say, an Iranian threat? Because yes, Iran does have terrorist networks around the world, and I will not downplay the possibility that they could attack us through one of their sleeper cell networks. And I'm also more concerned that the white nationalists are going to use this as the opportunity to do a false flag event, because we saw 3 Shahed style drones get stolen from a military base in Kentucky, I want to say this weekend was what I heard reporting of, and what that portends to or leads us towards. Chris?
So I do have a hard stop in 2 minutes.
And
so
I'll pull up your QR code here while you're finishing out too.
Thank you. We had 2 terrorist attacks happen yesterday here in the United States. Old Dominion, there was someone who was previously convicted of supporting ISIS, who killed an ROTC commander or teacher, and wounded 2 ROTC cadets. These are college students who are going to become part of the military. On the same day in Michigan, outside of Detroit, there was a synagogue that was attacked by a man whose 2 brothers were killed by Israel, I believe in Lebanon, in the past week. So we should all be expecting more of this. It is, I'm not saying it's just, I'm not saying it's justified. I'm saying it is likely. It is a rational response to attacks, an entity that is attacking you or people that you associate with or your family. Again, I'm not advocating on behalf of these terrorists. I'm just telling Americans that when we go to war, we should expect the other side to hit us back. It's war, as dominant as we are in the battle space, which is Pete Hegseth's like sole focus. We can't cover absolutely every shopping mall, movie theater, synagogue, church, everywhere in the United States. And we've got a tremendous portion of federal agents from the FBI who used to investigate terrorism, who are now sitting in Home Depot parking lots, taking notes and handing them to ICE, not because they want to, but because that is their job now. So we should expect more terrorist attacks. To have 2 on one day in 2 different states, totally unrelated to one another as far as we can tell so far, should tell you how frequent these things could potentially become in the future. And Steve, I love you, buddy, but I got a hard stop and I got to go. I'm already a minute late.
All right. Thanks, Chris.
All right,
I appreciate you a lot. We'll see you
later.
Next time.
See you, Chris.
And we've got Steven here a little late. His my message to him didn't get it to him in time, and that's all right. We're going to get you back next week too, if you've got time, and pretty much open invite any week, any Friday, or 1 p.m. Eastern, 12 p.m. Central time. Sorry, 1 p.m. Eastern, 12 Central, 10 Pacific. I'm trying to get my time zones down. We'll have you on. So I'll make sure to send you the stuff a little earlier next time, just so that it doesn't get lost in the sauce.
I don't think it's your fault. I think it's something with my Signal app on my phone is like not.
No, it happens.
Yeah.
And I want to get your thoughts though, before we jump over to Tara here, we're getting at the close end of the episode here. Is what are your thoughts on this idea of, like, based on your readings from the book, from who you are, can you actually, before anything, do you mind introducing yourself just a quick second to say who you are? Chris or Stephen and I got to know each other over this week and over the past couple of weeks a little bit, but we got to know each other this week on an intelligent masculinity interview. And as I said earlier, he's a good friend of Chris Goldsmith's. But Stephen, do you mind introducing yourself before we get some of your thoughts on, like, the likelihoods of, say, sleeper cell versus white nationalist attacks on our nation, and how we need to combat against that so that we can be on offense for saving democracy?
Sure. Yeah, my name is Steve Atchison, and like you said, I'm friends with Chris for a long time. We've been together since pretty much day one of basic training, and have done a lot of different things together over the years. I don't try to really take credit for the things Chris does, because a lot of that's been, his own motivations. But I've been out here in Wisconsin pretty much since I got out of the military in the end of 2008. I have a degree in civil engineering. I grew up on a dairy farm here in Wisconsin, and so I have he's got that East Coast experience of the past 20 years of the global war on terror and all of the things that have been affecting our country, and I have more of the rural Midwestern perspective, I suppose, and live very firmly in good old boy country here, and which has its ups and its downs, but I get to hear a lot of disturbing things where I live, that's for sure. And I got a chance to read through this whole book over the last like 10 days. I think I ordered it the first day that that you mentioned it, and it came the next day, and I just couldn't put it down, really. I think the most important thing that we can do is just try to organize in our communities. Like, I used to get really bogged down in the global things that are happening, and felt very hopeless and ineffective. And it wasn't really until I started trying to organize more locally and statewide, and really in my community, my small town of 800 and some people here in Blanchardville, Wisconsin, and just finding where my allies were even here in town, and how we could get together and create resiliency and protect our own communities, and not in any militant way or whatever, but just by really getting to know each other and creating that community, and figuring out where there were areas that we were lacking right here, and addressing those needs together is really, I think, the most important thing. If we all just focused more on our local issues, we'd be a lot better prepared for the bigger things that come our way.
Yeah, and I think that's a really important point. Thanks for bringing that up too, Stephen, was around the local and how we need to. And sometimes, yeah, it feels weird because we talk about local stuff and we are nationally speaking, like we are speaking nationally and internationally. Like, we have some amazing members of our audience who are in Canada who are actively supporting this offense for democracy, because it personally impacts them too. Like, the US going into a fascist nation is a bad thing for Canada, because it impacts and scares the shit out of Canadians, because they're our closest neighbor, and we could just roll onto and over them if we try. Like, we could start an offensive against them, and that would be scary as shit. And so Canadians are seeing us and becoming part of our community too, in a good way. But just because we're nationally broadcasting, the, say, 300 plus folks who are with us between the various platforms, if even just half of you went out and started a book club, or the AFBC book club, and just did your own in person, you could then use that and build off of it to implement some of Dr. G's daisy chain systems and the parallel systems to build better communities. And you can interlace these different community organizations and organizing methods together into a strong foundation where community is central again. And how is it for you? Because I'm in a red state too, and we've talked about this a little bit. But how is it for you as someone who is probably openly in your community known as someone who would be anti-fascist? How is that living in a community where you know some of your neighbors are pro-fascist? And what does that do maybe for like neighborhood barbecues or stuff like that, where you may have some things in common, but there's that really big wedge of I want democracy, they want fascism. How do we move forward with each other?
Well, one thing that I find the most interesting when I talk to people that I don't necessarily align with politically is like they think that they're the freedom fighters. You know, they really have it in their head that they're the ones who are protecting democracy by propping up, you know, oligarchs and propping up, you know, these wannabe dictators. And it's just always amazing to me to hear that sort of logic when I see it the complete opposite way. But I think I said in our intelligent masculinity, maybe it was before we went on air, that I've always been sort of a chameleon in a way, not in a negative way, but just that I've been able to find common ground with a lot of different people over my life. And even though I'm, you know, have my own personal beliefs, um, if I shut other people out of my life who I disagree with, I wouldn't have a lot of friends, you know? And so how are we gonna communicate our message with our neighbors and people in our community if we just like never talk to them? So
Mhm.
I feel like moving to this community, I wasn't born and raised here, very small town, very close knit, very kind of, I don't want to say closed off, but you know, there's multiple generations of families that live here their whole lives and never leave. And so anytime that someone new comes here, there's a lot of like very standoffishness until you can break down those barriers. And so one thing that I did when I first moved here was did a lot of coaching of youth sports. And I felt like that was a great way to like put politics aside and just show people that, hey, here's a guy new to our community, but like clearly he cares about our kids. And so then it makes it like a lot easier to jump into those bigger conversations when you learn like, oh, I voted for Trump. Okay, like let's have a
Yeah.
conversation about that. Right. And it's
Mhm.
not this immediate like, oh, you're from Madison, which around here Madison is like a swear word. You know,
Hmm.
being from any liberal center can really just be like an instant wall put up. So yeah, I'm not sure what the question really even was.
No, I think that was a great response to the question, and I feel I want to respond to some of the folks in the chat who have very very good question on this. And Tara, I don't mind if you stay just a little bit late for a couple of moments. There
Sure.
is another interview going on that I do want to jump over to myself to be able to listen to, but I want to get this closing bit of our conversation out of the way. The question was like, how do you how exactly do I be friendly with someone actively voting for my death? Or that
Mhm.
we're not asking everyone to be. I'm not asking you if you are in a place, especially if you are a woman or a minority or a marginalized community. I'm not asking you specifically to try and be friendly with these folks. I'm not asking, and I don't think Stephen is asking for everyone to always do it. But if you're in a position where you are privileged to be able to interact in these communities, and you can bear some of the emotional burden of disagreeing on that topic, like go participate in those communities. And when I say like if you have that privilege, a lot of that means if you look kind of like Stephen or me, like if you're a male and white and you have the privilege of being able to walk into most spaces and not be questioned as an individual ever, my privilege means I get to then go and say, hey, what you're doing seems fucking stupid, explain it to me. And my identity as a person is not going to be questioned by those folks. It's going to be seen as a challenge, yeah, and maybe an aggressive challenge towards their identity and who they are. But I don't want to put people in this. I'm not asking, just like in the book To Catch Fascists, Vincent our main character knows what the fuck he's doing, and he's able to blend into those situations and environments, and he's not asking others to do it for him. He's not asking others to put themselves in harm's way to be the one to do it. He's doing it. He is the white man who can do it, who can go into those circles, not always to be an undercover anti-fascist, but I can get into circles that allow me to experience those discussions in a way that's less appalling to my sense of personhood than it would be if, say, a trans person was being directly told to their face, you have no right to exist. That touches me, but not as severely as if I was a trans person being told that. And I can use my privilege to push back and go, hey, I'm not a trans person, but that's fucked up.
Yes.
And we make those the social costs. And
Yeah.
And Stephen, you talked about it a little bit in our interview, and we're sort of tailoring. Tara, sorry, you're getting an intro to what we talked about this past week. But I do want to hear this a little bit again. Was Stephen, you talked about coaching, and specifically when we spoke, you talked about the way you intentionally used words to not demean girls and those others who were in the flag football league that you were coaching. And can you talk about like that little bit of like social resistance, but also training for children on what it modeled, like what model that can set for those kids to be able to take away from, and like how that might open up conversations within a community?
Yeah, well, just to give a little more background, so I would kind of set out rules for our team, and I would have them lined up and just be like, all right, we're not gonna tell each other you throw like or run like or kick like a girl, because to be honest, every year that I've coached flag football, a girl has been the best player in our league, and more than one. And so one of the years that I was laying out these rules, we would coach next to other teams, and I could hear another coach from another team as I'm explaining my rules yelling at his team, you throw like a bunch of girls. And so it's just like, here I am trying to set out these rules for my team, and yet they're hearing from the coach right next to him these things that I'm telling them not to do. And it's the same thing in wrestling. Wrestling you think is like this big macho sport. I grew up wrestling my whole life, and now I'm coaching it and on the other side of it, and I'm just being very intentional about the words that I use, because there's a lot of coaches that use very derogatory tactics to motivate kids that I don't agree with, that I'm trying to get away from, trying to teach them that there's just a better way to go about that. So I don't know if that necessarily answered your question.
It did.
But it was very interesting reading about Vincent and his background, because as I'm reading it, I'm like, I grew up in a very conservative, close-minded environment. And if I would have done nothing than just go in the military and get out of the military and go back to that life, I would probably be one of those people. But I got out of the military and I joined Iraq Veterans Against the War. And I was very active in that organization for a number of years. And it was that which really exposed me to a lot of like further left-leaning people in my life. And it was only that I gained empathy for people who are trans and the LGBTQ community. And it was like humanizing them by working with them towards this common goal and not really putting those identities front and center. It was humanizing for me, because it's like, wow, like all of that can just be not pushed aside, but it's like, you're just human beings at the end of the day. And that's what it really boils down to. And I think a lot of the people that hold these beliefs that, they can be just mean-spirited are people who have like never had their horizons expanded in that way. And so it was like, wow, it would be really easy for me to become like a Vincent like character if I wasn't already like so public and people kind of knew who I was. Because I lived that life, and I speak that terminology. I know what's going on in their head almost before it even comes out of their mouth.
Yes, and but it just seems to me that, and listening to you guys too, the about your experiences with people, Trump voters, and all that. My opinion is that it's their propaganda ecosystem that keeps them stuck. And this is the problem. This is why studies show Trump supporters are more likely to believe something that comes out of his mouth, even when it's false. And there's a whole, yeah, and that's why we call it a cult. I mean, and it has all the characteristics of a cult. But these right wing outlets like Fox and OANN and Newsmax, they are, they routinely push misinformation. And that's why when you encounter a Trump voter, it's not hard to, you know, to debate, let's say, or because they're not operating in the reality based world. I was going to say community, but world, really, because that's why Trump, like all authoritarians, devalued truth. That was one of the first things he did. Don't believe them, believe me. He actually said that. Don't believe what you see, believe what I tell you.
Mhm.
And so, and now these people, it's like there's a whole, identity. That's why it's going to be very hard to break people out of it. But we have the duty. I'm of the opinion that you can't just leave things like laying in the floor to stink up the place. You have to respond. And even if that little social pushback, there's I think makes a difference. So
Yeah, I follow the Republican nominee, I guess you could call him that, for the Wisconsin gubernatorial race, Tom Tiffany, and I follow his social media, and it's just, to me, they just always play on fear.
Yeah.
They just play it up constantly, and they make people who don't necessarily get out in the world a whole lot, whether that be because they're farming all the time or they're just, they just never leave their hometown or whatever it might be. They just play up on their fears of what the rest of the world is.
Right.
And it's like, if they could just get out there, and see people for themselves, a lot of that would go away. And I guess that's really what happened to me, is like, I got out and I opened my eyes and I let myself just like see the humanity in people around me.
And that's it, really. And I think that's what's so sad about this timeline. And I hope that when we get to the other side, that people are so sick of the division that that it goes in the opposite direction, because we should care about each other, that we shouldn't drink each other's tears. That's one thing that always got me, MAGA selling merch, drinking liberal tears. Why are you drinking the tears of your fellow Americans? I don't want to drink your tears. I'm trying to make sure you don't have to die without health care, that you have
Trying to make
living
sure that
wages.
you're not going to cry.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah,
I want
I'm
you
trying to
have
make your tears
right.
disappear so that we're all
Yes.
fucking happier.
Right.
I gotta run and grab my charger real quick so that my phone doesn't die. Hold on.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, no worries.
All right.
And once Steven gets back, I've got a name I want to ask him about.
Okay.
'Cause
Well, I got to
he's in
run
Wisconsin.
at 2:30.
Yeah.
So,
Well,
yeah.
let me pop up your
Yeah, so why don't you just carry on with Steven, and I'll
I'm going to carry on with Steven just for a couple minutes here after, because I want to ask him a question around a candidate running in Wisconsin and thoughts, because I've had my friend Walter Ryan has interviewed Francesca Hong twice now, the gubernatorial candidate, and I wanted to get Steven's thoughts on that and like that type of campaign and the she's pretty open about her thoughts on things that are going on, and I think that's pretty awesome. So Tara, let people know where they can support you and promote you, because one of the ways that we fight back and we build community and we get these messages out there is we support each other, we build each other's platforms up, because the rising tide lifts all ships, and the more we rise this tide together, the better.
Yes.
And because we are filling a void of voices, and Tara, you're one of the voices filling that void of nonsense.
I try.
And so how can people support you, Tara? How can people find your work?
Yes, please. We'll scan that QR code there. And I have a show on Political Voices Network on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And on Friday night, we have our Friday night get together on the Tara Buster YouTube channel. So youtube.com/see for channel/Tara Buster. So subscribe to my Substack and you'll get the links and all that, and then you'll be able to hang out with us tonight. We have a lot of fun in the chat. Everyone is it's a great community. So 8:30 p.m. tonight, and yeah, if you can subscribe, you can. I know you can do it. Just subscribe.
You can do
to
it.
the Substack.
It's free. It's free to subscribe. You
Yeah,
can do it.
yeah, exactly. So yeah, there you go. And we,
All right.
we're unapologetic. It's unapologetic liberal talk. This is the liberal media, and we have to support each other. So I thank you for what you do to keep the show going and growing, and me motivated, because it does get much. So
Yeah.
thank you.
No, I appreciate you, Tara.
Thank
Thanks for
you.
joining us every week too. And you will find Tara every week with us here on the Anti-Fascist Book Club and on the Political Voices Network, and every Friday. So come join Tara, come follow, support her work.
Yes. Thank you.
And help keep getting her voice out there more.
I appreciate it.
Tara.
All right, I'm going to bounce. So
All right.
Nice to meet you there, Stephen. And,
yeah, nice to meet you too. I've listened to you a couple times, and I really appreciate everything.
Thank you too. Thank you. Awesome. And I'll see you soon. All righty.
All right. Sounds good. Thanks, Tara.
Yes, I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Sounds good. And Stephen, I wanted to keep you on just for a couple more moments. We had a question from the chat. I have a friend Walter Ryan, who I do a lot of shows with and have really good discussions with. He's also out of Wisconsin and has been running candidate interviews for the last few weeks and months and trying to get people on. And he's had some really good interviews with folks out of Wisconsin. And I wanted to get your thoughts on two of them. If you know anything about them or have thoughts on them, is your gubernatorial candidate, Francesca Hong, first, and what your thoughts are. Because we've posted on Banner and Backbone 2 of Walter's interviews with her, and she seems solid. She seems like a candidate who's aiming for the people and wants to listen. But I want thoughts on the ground from someone who lives in the state.
Yeah, I mean, you sort of portrayed Wisconsin as a red state earlier, and I would push back on that a little bit. In that, I actually think that we're a blue state that's just been gerrymandered to fuck, and that's why we sometimes become a red state. But on most statewide elections, with the exception of Ron Johnson, somehow that Jagoff is still in office. Most statewide elections, we go blue, and I think. But as far as Francesca Hong, I mean, she's my favorite candidate. That's for sure. I mean, I think she's the only explicit Democratic Socialist on the ticket, and just her background. I mean, being a chef, before my back injury from the military got worse and I had to quit, I used to run an organic produce and livestock farm, and a lot of our sales were into restaurants in Madison. We sold to, 7 or 8 different restaurants in that city for quite a few years. And so that really, that connection alone right there was enough for me to be like, I know who this person is without even really meeting her. And just because all the chefs in Madison really have kind of a similar take in that food scene. But yeah, to follow her on her socials. I haven't met her in person yet. I would love to, but yeah, I share her stuff quite a bit. I think she's right on point. I think everything she talks about is what's needed for this state. From school funding to, I mean, one of the reasons I got into organic farming was seeing how terrible the school lunches were at my stepson's school when I would go and volunteer at his class, and I just like, what are they feeding these kids, and it sort of spurred that farmer in me to like do something about it. And so I definitely, she's my number one candidate on the Democratic side, I think, for sure.
Awesome. That's good to hear. And I'll see if I can talk to Walter about if she's going to come on for another interview sometime, if we can get you involved in that.
That'd be great.
Especially as someone who would be one of her constituents. Another one of her constituents. It's cool to have Walter doing all these interviews, especially for candidates out of Wisconsin where he is, so that he can help impact change in his local area. And that's really what this comes down to, is local impact and change in what you can do. And there is another candidate, and I don't know if she's your district area or not, but Emily Berge, Berge is her last name, and she's running for the one of the federal representative seats
Oh, okay.
in Wisconsin. So I'm not exactly sure which district she's in, but she's another one who is on that vein of just for the people of the community. She's on city council, I believe it is, and she knows, like, she's in the system. She talks to people in the community. She's part of it, and it sounds like that's where your focus is that idea of local community organizing and gathering, and tying it as a closing, I guess, into our morning of the discussion around Catch Fascist, and getting us to I guess end our show out a little bit, is what would you say that what do you see in, say, Francesca Hong that brings you hope for this type of local pushback that is needed to break through some of these larger or even more localized groups that have spawned out of things like Patriot Front and these white nationalist movements?
Well, like I said earlier, what gives me hope are just her ideas for the state in terms of funding for our school systems. I think education is key, and we just really have taken I mean, ever since Act 10, really, ever since Republicans took control of our state legislature, in my opinion, we've been going backwards. I mean, I was in college when Act 10 was going on. I literally slept in our Capitol building, right underneath the second floor of the rotunda in the Veterans Memorial. Me and a few buddies hung out there. In fact, our banner made it onto the Stuart Colbert feature show. We kind of called them out and got brought some more publicity to what was going on there. But yeah, the original protests there, and ever since, we've just seen an erosion of public infrastructure in our state. And so I think just her thoughts on how to rebuild that. And I mean, we really just need better maps. We got some better maps more recently in Wisconsin, more fair maps, but we're still, I think, a long ways away from truly fair. I mean, we have some very, very unpopular people in positions of power in our state that it's just like, it doesn't matter what they do, they're picking their electorate. So we're never going to get rid of them. Luckily, the worst one, in my opinion, Robin Voss, just announced that he's going to be retiring. And I've had face-to-face meetings with him when I was running a veteran advocacy group. And he just would straight lie right to your face and like, thanks for paying for my meal, and just go on with his day, like not even batting an eye. So I was really glad to see that he's retiring, but who's going to replace him, could be even worse. So
Yeah.
I think, the governor can't just shake a magic stick and have better maps, but we have more fair maps going into these elections than we've had before. And that gives me a little hope to maybe have some more turnover, turn this state from solidly red in our legislature to a bit more purple.
Love it. Yeah, because we also need to break through the myth that places are red when they're not, too. And it's just people are probably disengaged more so than anything, and been told they need to be disengaged. And so let's close out the show in also another way is, how can people find you? How can they support what you're doing? I know you're newer on Substack still, and we're getting you more active, but I got your picture today. I'm updating.
Yeah, I just
from
did
last
that
time.
earlier. You like that?
I like it. I like it. So, Stephen, where can people find you? How can they support what you're doing?
Mostly right now, just on my Facebook profile, and you can just search my name. And you'll be careful not to friend request my dad, who has the same name as I do. Make sure you're looking at Stephen Atchison. But yeah, I'm mostly on there. I'm getting a little bit more active on Substack, but still that's kind of slow moving. I'm also running for my local school board. So for whatever that's worth, I don't know if there's any
Awesome.
Blanchardvillians around on watching us, but trying to make a difference there. So
Awesome. Well, I'm going to get you on for a candidate interview, even local school board to Congress. That's what we want. We want every position being run, not unopposed. We need positions everywhere across the nation to learn, to be informed, because a more informed electorate is a smarter electorate and they make better choices. So, Stephen, I'm going to get you on for a candidate interview. I'm actually going to see if I can get Walter to interview you as well as part of it, because he's local Wisconsin with you. And I think that makes an impact, is to have others in your state interview you. And hopefully your race goes well. And hopefully we can give you some good, we won't be easy. We never are. We always ask hard questions. We ask honest questions. We want to know who you are and what you are about and what you can bring to your community. Because right now, that's what we need. We need people bringing things to their community. So, friends, come support Stephen. You'll be seeing him more here on Banner and Backbone with me and friends as he comes on with the Anti-Fascist Book Club. You'll see him occasionally on Sick of the Shit publications too. I'm going to be working to get him on some of the shows over there. And hopefully this has been a great introduction for y'all to who Stephen is. And Stephen, I hope this has been, I know towards the end, but a good introduction to the last little bit of the Anti-Fascist Book Club for the day.
Excuse me. Yeah, it's been great. I'm looking forward to this. So thank you for having me.
Awesome. Thanks, man. And I'll close out too here. Please come find me at Sick of This Shit Publications. That's my main home for my main work on masculinity, chronic illness discussions, and all of the other community building aspects that I'm doing to try and help make a manosphere that doesn't suck, to make a community that we all want to be a part of, and we can push back on the paradox of tolerance and make intolerant things intolerable again. So come join me there at Sick of the Shit Publications. And then finally, come join us here at Banner and Backbone. We're pushing back against all these narratives. We've got the Anti-Fascist Book Club. We've got Palin Talk. We have our articles that we put out. We're reposting the candidate interviews from Walter Ryan, and we're continuing to grow on y'all's discussions and y'all's feedback. And I appreciate all of you. Free, paid support, whatever you can provide or offer us, that helps. And then at the end, when I get the show reposted after this morning, thank you guys. Please repost, restack, like, share, put it on your socials, send it to your friends on Facebook, send it to your MAGA relatives, have them listen to these conversations, because maybe they'll feel welcomed. Maybe have them send it to your disaffected friends, because they'll feel welcomed here, because we're not trying to push people away from knowledge. If you're allergic to knowledge, that's a you problem, not a me problem. We're going to make knowledge a you problem, though. So come back with us again, everyone, next week, next Friday at 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific, for another episode of Banner and Backbone's Anti-Fascist Book Club, based on the Veterans Fighting Fascism model, because it is all of us fighting fascism now. So let's fight together, friends. Thanks, y'all. Thanks, Stephen. Appreciate it today.